Now, one sector in the non-oil sector of the economy that contributes to the GDP is the manufacturing sector. Now, that sector only grew by 0.77% in the full year 2019 from 2.09% in 2018. And joining me to look at this sector performance is the MD and CEO of Coleman Wires and Cables, Mr. George Onofowokan. Good morning and welcome to Business Morning.
Good morning, Miss.
It's good to have you on the program. It's actually been a very long while. All right, so the manufacturing sector only grew 0.77%. Did this actually come to you as a surprise?
Not really, because you're looking at a full-year figure. But when you look at the month-to-month end figure, the last quarter was actually a month-to-month end growth. Now, if you base it on that, you could see that, yes, 2017-18, we came out of recession growth. Now, you cannot come out of a recession and actually grow, picking a growth. You actually expect that there will be a slow growth, a stable growth. Now, policies, I think, definitely in the last couple of months or last 1 year has been more positive to the manufacturing sector, which is why we're all now seeing the month-to-month growth. Now, the average growth, of course, it's not a growth of 1 quarter, it's a growth of 4 quarters. And when you look at that average growth, that's why you'll see that minimal figure. Now, but when you look at the last quarter, month-by-month growth, we see we're on the right projection. And I'm not surprised that your total average is low, because statistically, there's nothing you can do about that. But what I think we should all focus on is, are we getting that month-to-month growth? And when you look at certain policies that have actually happened, certain things that have happened in the last couple of months, I'll say in the last 2 quarters of the 2019, vis-a-vis border closures, well, a lot of people actually frowned at it. But for us, when you look at the manufacturing sector, the last statistics by MAN, for instance, showed that 75% of the manufacturers actually said they were positively in favor of. 25% were against. Now, so when you look at that, that means they were positively in favor, which means they were positively gaining the advantage of the closures. So I wasn't surprised to actually see a quarter increase or a month-by-month increase, because the border closures actually closed up the loopholes. And if I take the industry I'm in, for instance, if I look at the last quarter of 2019, especially going towards the last month of 2019, we saw an unprecedented demand for cable that we had never seen, I'll say I haven't even seen in 5 years. And it was sustained till today, and all attributed to one single thing: border closure. Now, the worst companies on the list actually were in full capacity utilization in December up to date. So people that disengaged people were actually now employing more. So you actually see capacity utilization growth happening. Utilization of the companies were actually better. Then their growth rate is better. Then eventually you actually see their turnover is better. The actual figures come out better. You see that reaction in terms of month-by-month growth.
Now, you talk about some of the positives of the border closure now, for instance. But what happens if the borders are reopened?
Now, the borders eventually would be reopened. There's nothing you can do about that, because we're not an isolated country. We are a country within West Africa and within Africa. So anybody assuming border closures is for life is assuming not being realistic. Now, what we're saying is that, look, whatever worked under the border closure is what we need to insist on when the border is open. Now, which means that whatever it takes, that we need to guarantee that whatever you're bringing through our land borders is actually justified. Meaning that, okay, for instance, under the ECOWAS Treaty, it says you must have an added value of at least 30%. Now, let's see this 30% inside it. Now, don't repackage products in the country and bring it in. Then 2, then whatever is dutable, taxable, is actually paid for. And if I take the instance of our industry, we noticed one major difference between the border closures. Now, you have to look at it. Border closures did not say don't bring in goods into Nigeria. It says the port is opened. But because our ports, we are a lot more diligent with how we deal with port importation. We're not that diligent with our borders. Now, we find out people do pay, majority of the time, the right duties when it comes to port issues. Now, the borders were too porous. Now, how do we solve that? I think the focus should be policies that make sure that whatever you bring in follows the same strict rules as we've done on the seaport. And if that happens, then the Nigerians become as competitive. If you don't make businesses competitive, there's no way you can create growth. Now, creating GDP growth month on month is to also make sure that your businesses that are within and the investments that are within are protected. Meaning that you actually gave them the same level playing field as the one coming from outside. If we actually say as Nigerians that we're on a level playing field in business, especially in industry, then we're kidding ourselves. You've got deficiencies in infrastructure, you can name it. We know that. But how do you get it level? So that is why you will see government policies either protecting via fiscal policies or via micro policies to actually protect certain industries to actually make sure they are at level points. So the key thing is making sure those level points are played when those borders open, and we need to start doing it now.
Now, from the manufacturer's point of view, tell us what are some of the challenges that are mitigating the growth of the manufacturing sector?
Some of it are staring us in the face. If you look at it today, port, the port congestion has been a major issue. It is now the most expensive. It's more expensive to drive a container out of the port in Nigeria now into Lagos, not out of Lagos, than it is to ship that old container into Nigeria. Now, so when you look at it, cost has gone as high as saying a 20-foot container coming out of the port. This is raw materials. We're not even, and in our industry, we're even better off now because we've managed to backward integrate in the last few years. And now we're only depending on 20-30% import. Now, when you look at this 20-30% import that is still coming in, and you have to pay 800,000, 1 million naira to bring one container of 20 foot from that port to your doorstep, it makes no business sense. So we need to try to resolve this type of issues quickly. Now, when you keep talking about ease of doing business is invalid if the cost of doing the business is higher. So we need to actually put those in to get these figures up. So when you're easing business, you also ease that cost of business. Let's look at the port issue. Let us find out if we cannot solve the congestion overnight, which I don't think we've been struggling to find. How do we mitigate it? Now, I don't think we're that ingenious as a country or as a people not to find a temporary solution. And we keep hearing one over the other. As manufacturers, we get tired when you hear one and you find that they have not even been able to accomplish it. It creates another loophole for another one. And then that doesn't help the economy grow. So we need to continue to look at policies that do improve. Certain policies are coming that improving the sector. For instance, the power, new policy on power in the last, in December, where they actually allowed the embedded power to actually flow than what it was being done before. That was a very good policy. It's now meaning I know one or two manufacturers that have been able to now share power. So cost of business would come down. Instead of everybody buying their own generators, you've got one guy selling power into 3, 4, 5 companies. That will help. We need to decentralize power utilization and power decentralize. So not everybody needs to buy a generator. Those are one key factor. Drop power cost, drop cost of funds, drop cost of sales of doing business. As long as we can do that, we can then get these figures constantly going up.
What about consumer spending? How has it impacted the manufacturing sector?
I think the consumer spending is gradually going back up. I think there's a positive outlook to the economy. I was one of those that when we were asked, what do you think of 2020 or 19? I said my own outlook is stable to positive. And I think I was talking to one of the guys. I said I was the first person in the industry for them to hear that from stable to positive. I said yes, because it has to be stable to positive because certain things were already in play. Now, agriculture is growing. Once agriculture is growing, industry will grow because you cannot grow agriculture without industry. Someone has to process it. So today we're all saying rice. Now, why? Because we have more rice millers coming up. Now, rice millers are industrial sectors. They are processing the agricultural sector. Now, so the more you actually move away from thinking about what impacts positively to looking at what generates this impact, we need more rice millers. We need more rice generators. It's the same thing. Rice cultivation has become better. But people did not understand. Part of it was that border closure. Unfortunately, I keep referring to that. Now, why it was, okay, we were able to close down the rice coming in. For the first time, the rice millers now could pay the right price for the farmers to do farming. Rice farming is a quarterly based yield. So which means you can do 4 times. So why are everybody not? But today, literally everywhere you go in Nigeria, there's a rice farmer coming up somewhere. Why? Because the millers are paying the right price. Now, and everybody screamed that the price went up. I said, in any business, when it is not sustainable, as in there's no right amount of supply chain to that business, the price will not be right. A miller that opens a big mill and spends 1 billion and only works 2-3 times a month is never going to give you a rice that is cost effective. But if he works 80% of that month, because he's still going to pay the same salary to those workers, the price of that rice will come down. Competition will come into play. Naturally, the price will start coming down. And we've also seen that. But we are never patient, because a lot of Nigerians have not dabbled into industry. For the manufacturing sector that sees it, we tell you, please just allow it time. And a little time can turn things around. Today, cement is a success story. Because yes, it went up, but it naturally came down at its right time because competition allowed it. Once we don't allow competition to play its part in any business, we have to suffer the consequences at the beginning. And we need to sell it right. I get annoyed when I go to a party and someone says, we're serving you local rice. Why do we have to give a terminology to our rice? Rice is rice. Made in Nigeria or not, we need to be proud of it. We need to eat it, irrespective. And once we're proud of it, they would improve the specification as they go by. And as they get by, we actually become rice exporters. Same way we became cement exporters. We believed in our product. Today, if I go out of the country and you give me a drink, the first thing I look at the juice is, where is it made from? Because to me now, if you give me juice that is not made in Nigeria, I'll have a problem. Because we're very proud of the juice that's made here. But at a point in time, our policy did not encourage that industry. But when it did, the price of juice went up. Today, nobody talks about juice not made in Nigeria anymore. If you really want to do juice in Nigeria, you really have to invest in Nigeria to do it. And it just shows if we give time, GDP growth in industry will grow. But the country must, as a people, must be patient for that growth to happen, for all of us to benefit from the industrial and the employment generated from it.
But before you go, Mr. Onofowokan, let me get your reaction to the National Bureau of Statistics plans to begin the National Census of Commercial and Industrial Businesses as to monitor and evaluate the impact of government's economic blueprint on businesses. Of course, we had the Dr. Yemikale reacting to it earlier, but what's your reaction to that?
I think it's a positive outlook to saying things. It's better for us to do it. From what I've seen before, we didn't do it for 30 years. And it's figures, you see, statistics, irrespective, enable businesses. It enables research work. It enables the ability to actually confirm your strategic planning. And it also enables those outside that want to invest in the country to actually see the country in within a better view. Because I don't have to really be in your country if I actually see your statistics of how your growth rate is in the industry to actually generate my own business strategic planning. So it is better for us to start doing it. It's irrelevant we didn't do it for a while. The good thing is, let's start doing it. The more information or research data that we have, the better business decisions are made in country, the better business decisions are made for FDIs, for indirect investment. So it's an enabling factor. So please, kudos to them if they can do it.
All right, Dr. George Onofowokan, MD CEO of Coleman Wires and Cables. Many thanks for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having me.